Hey everyone, hello, and welcome to today's stream. We are at September 8th, 2020, and I hope everyone had enjoyed their Labor Day weekend, so that way we can jumpstart fresh. So, among the things that we'll be doing is we'll start off with the announcements, general announcements that we have, and after the announcements, we have a special guest. Uh, we have Angela Bazigos, and she'll be talking about very important topic of today, which involves artificial intelligence. And why that's a very important topic, we'll be discussing through the announcements. So, going to the announcements. Announcements itself uses well, first of all, let me thank my colleague Ken Bear. He advised me on this event that will take place in several days, and it is presented by Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. I'm putting it to chat, those of you who are watching, and I'm going to provide the link after the stream is over on the playback, as always. They will be talking about the logistics. They'll be talking about the issues concerning cargo processing and general stuff that freight forwarders and members of international trade community are facing on day-to-day operations. So registration is free. It's on the link that I provided. So one thing I would recommend is for everyone to go and join. All right. So uh, the next topic, which kind of flew out of today's symposium, relates to educational outreaches that Customs and Border Protections has launched. So previously speaking, I'm talking about even a few years back. I'm talking about even 2017, 2016, which is not that long ago. You used to have outreach by customs through the informed compliance publications. Yes, they still do exist. You had directives, you had federal register notices, you had customs bulletins. And more and more, that especially picked up since 2019, and after the coronavirus situation, it just jumped off. You have barrage of outreach webinars by customs that educate public about issues that, well, that customs faces. Customs is facing, as you know, customs agency transformed itself also in recent times. It went from the port-centered organization to the situationally centered organization. And by situationally centered, what I mean is they focus on a particular area of expertise and they devote personnel who does this particular area very well, who has knowledge, uh, who is in a way local subject matter expert, and they ask this gentleman or gentle lady to say, listen, why don't you work in that area not only for the port of Los Angeles if you are stationed in LA, or Miami, or New York, or Atlanta? Why don't we design what they call Center of Excellence and Expertise, and you're going to share your knowledge with everyone in the country. So you have a birth of centers of excellence and expertise with a focus on automotive, industrial goods, on chemical goods, on IT stuff, and they are located throughout the country. So I think at the intellectual level, of course, if you are focusing on one product and you're not all over the map. This is something which is great. But customs even went further, and I'm talking about the recent times. So behind me is a screen. Let me put it up. Please note the link, and this link relates to a number of seminars or webinars that customs is doing. The next one is coming up on September 16th, and is going to talk about Section 337 enforcement. Section 337 enforcement relates to the intellectual property rights, and specifically it relates to patent. So those folks who are taking customs broker exam, please be aware. This stuff has showed up on the exam, the section 337. It doesn't come up frequently, but the fact that customs is holding a special webinar, especially dedicated to section 337, is great. So not only for the members, the folks who are taking the exam, but also for the everyone should have general knowledge, because this is another way to erect a trade barrier and protect your products from the outside competition. This is done through patents. There are different patents. I'm sure the folks from customs will talk about it. And the Section 337, I believe, through the International Trade Commission, makes an order, and customs enforces the order, and whatever the goods are protected by that patent, they are not permitted entry. So please keep in mind that there is a wealth of information, and the way it is being presented, it takes a whole different shape and form than just a few years ago. Another topic that was published, and we're talking about, well, we talked about the International Trade Commission, but the International Trade Commission doesn't only do Section 337 enforcement, it also has a research arm, and they do good publications. Once a year they, well, they do a bunch of publications actually. This week they published the overview of they call it the trade shifts that took place in 2019. So obviously it doesn't cover the coronavirus, but the coronavirus will show up later. But what I wanted to bring to your attention is the trade deficit. So you have U.S. merchandise trade balance. You have 2015, 2017, 2018. So 2018 was the year when Donald Trump erected those protective barriers. And by looking at this statistical chart made by the by the executive agency, it's within the executive branch of the government. Oh, actually, wait, I'm wrong. It's an independent agency. I think it's an independent agency. I confused it with the Department of Commerce. But the bottom line is they still do a great job and taking that data in and presenting it in a very easy format available to everyone. So I will take the link and also post it in a chat box, as well as I'll post it later on the stream playback. So what's the takeaway here? Well, I think the takeaway is you can see the trade balance is still around. It's very difficult to get that negative trade balance out. And look at the summary of the USITC statement. U.S. general imports fell by 42.4 billion to 2.5 trillion, right? But the decline is not that substantial. All right, China took a hit, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. And that just shows how, remember that trade war rubric that we see every day on the TV? It just shows how difficult it is to really change the industrial base, the trade position of the United States, notwithstanding open declarations by the president about, for example, the trade war, about um, the jobs. And going back to our first and the second streams, we talked about the shifting of the paradigm, right, from liberal free trade to the conservative one. Well, this one just goes to the point that it is very difficult to change all this uh, uh, the trade policy in a direction which the executive leadership wants. All right, so going to last week's announcement about the trade week, the registration is closed by now, but it kicked off today. The topic was general introductions, and the topic also included things on well, major topic of today was USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, but also of a very important point was the introductions by the assistant commissioner, who went on to say the importance of modern trade analytics in battling or improving the compliance of the Section 321. So just a brief refresher. The Section 321 refers to what now has become very popular, especially with the advent of Amazon fulfillment program, where you bring a lot of small entries. If your entry is small, which is defined as $800 or less, if you bring it one entry per day, one shipment per day, I'm sorry, what happens is you don't need to declare so much data as you have to do for the higher value shipments. So, for example, HTS number fully is not there. So there is the an HTS number is very important because this is how customs tracks most of the things. This is how it alerts other government agencies or participating government agencies. This is how the many compliance points are done. So with that element gone and the e-commerce being on the rise, then you have this kind of a gap in enforcement. Anti-dumping duties, for example, countervailing duties go the same way. So what customs has done is it relied on technology. First of all, it relied on partners. So you can see customs listing partners, and it's only going to expand. The acting commissioner of customs, when he went out today and made the introductory symposium speech, he was really excited about this. He said those guys from Amazon, eBay, Zululu, and others, they were great because they will provide they were able to provide tons of information where customs was able to include many things in its analytical background which it would not be able to include previously. So this is huge, and this is really relevant because we planned the discussion about the artificial intelligence, and that's what artificial intelligence is, because it takes big data, it provides analytics. So what we have is we have the issue where you have Commissioner of Customs coming in and saying, listen, big data is important. Analysis of this data is even more important. But that's customs. Commissioner, of course, did not go by and did not fail to mention the other huge agency which takes very important step in the enforcement of imports, in the compliance, and other issues which are related to the international trade. Of course, I'm talking about the Food and Drug Administration. So my colleague Angela Bazigos, which we'll meet in a second, was very kind to provide this memo from head of FDA, where it says that, quote, the commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration emphasized the importance of data in FDA's work and described as a science-based regulatory agency and the need to, quote, unleash power of data through sophisticated mechanisms such as using artificial intelligence to screen food imports. So, normally speaking, what and I'm not talking about even good old days, but whenever we're planning to bring a shipment of food into the United States, and to make our due diligence, we would go to, well, with respect to FDA, we would go to such places as Import Alert, and would check the supplier, the manufacturer, the product itself, the commodity, if it had gone on a red list, if it is presumptively denied entry, before making the import. Well, those days, seemingly, even though it's relevant, are taking lesser and lesser importance because there is the big data and artificial intelligence which are taking precedence of the day. You see Commissioner of Customs, Acting Commissioner of Customs talking about it in its introduction. You see the head of FDA talking about it. So I think we're very lucky to have a guest today. Her name is Angela Bazigos, and Angela will give us an introductory overview of what is going on and why is everyone talking about the big data, the artificial intelligence, and why this is really matter. Okay, 1 second. Okay, Angela, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, one more time, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can hear you very well.
Thank you.
I think, Angela, as you heard my introductory remarks, the artificial intelligence is playing higher and higher role not only in the world of customs, but it's spreading around to other agencies and is just taking over the highlight of the day, if you will. So my understanding is that because of your background and what I want to do, you have an excellent background. 1 second. And I believe, let me put this on the screen, that Touchstone Technologies Inc. is the company you are affiliated with. and the company does a lot of work which is FDA related. And because of the work which is FDA related, my understanding is that you also came in touch with things such as artificial intelligence and those things that are related to big data, if you will. So I understand that you were kind enough to prepare a treat for us, and you have a presentation which really goes down and to the roots of where artificial intelligence came from. Even though it sounds scary, but it has a scientific basis. The reason I say it sounds scary is because when I think of artificial intelligence, I'm thinking that robots are taking over. And probably it may be true, especially when we have conversations about 5G networks, robots talking to one another, learning things. But that buzzword, that artificial intelligence buzzword, is on everyone's mind. So maybe you would be very kind and demystify this notion of what artificial intelligence is and educate us whether we should be scared as far as, well, we saw the imports exports are under this artificial intelligence umbrella. From the perspective of FDA, we have customs commissioner coming out talking about this. I think international trade community should be concerned, afraid, or both. What do you say?
Well, thank you, Yuri, and thank you for the introduction. Just to add a little bit to it, and we'll get to artificial intelligence right away. You know, people say, oh, I am a boomer, or I'm a generation X, or a Gen Y, or a millennial. I don't know what you think you are, but I will tell you, you're generation A, B, C. Okay, and ABC stands for artificial intelligence, big data, cloud. This is where we are. We're generation ABC. I also want to mention, for those who are not aware of this, we think of Amazon. I do not know what we think Amazon's business model is, but actually the business model is data. They do not care one iota about the product. They care about having our data. And I have a fantastic article discussing Amazon's business model that I will forward to you, Yuri, and you can make it available on your website. Like Yuri said, I have been in this industry about 40 years. I do anything related to Title 21. Which is FDA. I'm one of the people that wrote the 21 CFR 11 regulations, which is the computer systems validation regulation. And I have a degree in computing. Share my screen, and please interrupt me if anything doesn't work. So, okay, if I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I hope you can still hear me. I am actually going to use LifeSciences as the industry that I will give case studies for. Worry not, it's only a couple of slides. Everything else applies to everything. Go ahead, Yuri.
Angela, if I may interrupt, I think this concept is not separate and apart from the concept which are coming into the international trade community as well.
Exactly.
The concept of big data and the concept of what is going on as far as strategic analysis of and the concept of big data are applicable to the agencies such as FDA.
FDA, customs, anybody, because remember,
Right.
FDA is Title 21. I'm not sure what Title Customs is, but all the CFRs, they're very much the same.
FDA Title 21, Customs is Title 19.
There you go. We're even close in title. That close. All right. So we're going to talk today and ignore my extremely long bio, but we're going to start
Very
with
impressive.
a riddle. Thank you, sir. We're going to start with a riddle. The riddle is two numbers, 1 and 0. Then I am going to talk about ELIZA and Parry, who are really at the forefront of AI development. We'll talk about AI definitions, and then I am just going to use LifeSciences as a roadmap. It doesn't matter. Everything that's in LifeSciences exists in all the other industries, and you will be able to see how LifeSciences applies to the particular industry you're working with. Then we're going to pick a robot, and we're going to train a robot. I hope people remember the movie How to Train Your Dragon. Well, training a robot is much easier. So we're going to talk about training your robot and how to regulate AI, crystal ball, future of AI as I see it, conclusion, references, and then Q&A if people are interested. So let's start with a riddle. And I'm not sure how many presentations you've had. Let's start with a riddle. All right. 10. And basically, there are these many people in the world. Who are they? Again, there are these many people in the world. Who are they? And of course, if you said those who understand binary and those who do not, then you're absolutely correct, because this is what a computer is. 1 means current on, and 0 means current off. At the belly, at the heart of the computer, it only knows ones and zeros, nothing else. Just current
Angela,
on,
this sounds
current
like
off.
The way the internet system functions with 0 and 1s, correct?
That is correct. There's nothing else.
Okay.
As far as a computer is concerned, there's nothing else. And we know things like, these are called bits. And then, of course, bytes are 8 bits, kilobytes, 1024 bytes, megabyte, 1024 kilobytes, gigabyte, 1024 megabytes, and a terabyte is 1024 gigabytes. So when we see a computer, we see images, we see text, we see links, but this is what you see at the user interface level. What it really translates to is this series of ones and zeros. Now, I want to make a very important point here. Anything that you enter, it actually gets translated into ones and zeros. When it flies around the internet, it flies in ones and zeros. And then when it gets somewhere that you want to have in human readable form again, then it would translate the ones and zeros into human readable form. This is extremely, extremely important to understand because it explains in our generation ABC the sort of errors you can have with data. And one of the things I have done, like I said, I've been 40 years on Title 21, but for about 2 years, I worked on writing programs to run the underground trains in San Francisco. There's a language called C back in the day. And basically what it says is if you want to store some space in memory, so if I wanted to store a little bit of memory to write Lisa, I would have to say, hey, I want this to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I would want this to be 13 bits long for the word Lisa. Now, in order to make sure that it doesn't keep going and writing Lisa, 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 Lisa for billions of times, I have to put a little zero there. And I would put that in square brackets. I was writing these programs. These are running trains. We were testing the trains at night, and I forgot to put a zero here. In the billions and billions and the trillions of ones and zeros, I forgot 1 0. So my program went and wrote Lisa all over everybody else's program. And the train screeched to a halt. We had to stop everything. We had to figure out whose fault this was. Of course, that was me. And I was threatened that they would dock my salary to feed everybody with pizza while we were trying to recover our programs. Where I'm going with this is it's very, very easy to make a tiny mistake that makes things wrong. So if you were to think of artificial intelligence, this presentation as pieces of a puzzle, this is one of the pieces I would like you to remember, but ones and zeros. All right, let's talk about the protagonists of the early history of AI, and that would be ELIZA and Harry. So ELIZA was the first chatbot. She was created by Joseph Weizenbaum at MIT at the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, and this was in 64 to 66. Back in those days, you might have heard of languages like Java or C or Hadoop or Fortran or COBOL. Back in those days, they used something called Fortran, and this lab created SLIP, which is a symmetric list processor, and this was early natural language written in MadSlip. Basically, it's just a set of scripts. And what ELIZA does is it looks at the text for keywords, like we do keyword searches today, and then applies values to said keywords. So, you know, if you do a Google search, it comes back with a value that says this is the most likely. That's what ELIZA does. And all ELIZA would then do is whatever input she got, and I am saying she, but remember this is like an Excel spreadsheet. It's not a person, it's a program. But she would transform it into output. She was called ELIZA because of Pygmalion, so like Eliza Doolittle. She was supposed to have machine learning, so to be incrementally improved by various users, so hence the term ELIZA. The problem with ELIZA, the program, is that even though we say machine learning, that's an oxymoron, machines do not learn. And you need to actively edit ELIZA directly in order to change the manner in which the program operates. For the chemically minded amongst you, or biochemically, or immunologists, please note it's ELIZA with a Z, not ELIZA with an S, which stands for enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. So ELIZA is born, and then Weizenbaum had the bright idea to get ELIZA to play doctor. So what he did is added scripts, and we're in How to Train Your Robot, we'll see how those happen. To the scripts were added to simulate a Rogerian hypotherapist, specifically Carl Rogers. And what Carl Rogers would do is he would parrot back at patients what they just said. And there were some rules, if this value ends up being X, then do Y. If the value ends up being A, then do B. But Dr. ELIZA is now born. And this is what Dr. ELIZA looked like. This is the program. This is way back when we had just normal terminals. ELIZA, by the way, this particular snippet is from his Weizenbaum's secretary, who was so convinced this was a person that she asked Weizenbaum to leave the room so she could have a proper conversation with ELIZA.
Angela, and this is 1960s?
Yep, 1964 to 66, and you can actually, this screen, 1966, right over here.
Okay.
So ELIZA says, is something troubling you? The secretary says, men are all alike. ELIZA analyzes this. What is the connection, do you suppose? You or the secretary, they're always bugging us about something or other. ELIZA, can you think of a specific example? Well, my boyfriend made me come here. ELIZA, is it important to you that your boyfriend made you come here? Notice she's just parroting back. He says, I'm depressed much of the time. ELIZA, I am sorry to hear that you are depressed, because she has a rule that if she says the word depressed, she has to say she's sorry. And then you say, it's true, I am unhappy. And then the rule says, if you hear the word unhappy, you have to say, can you explain what made you unhappy? So this is the little chat. It's just a computer program. It's like Excel or Word. It looks like it's capable of engaging in discourse, but it does not actually have true understanding of whatever is going on. However, many early users were convinced of ELIZA's intelligence and understanding, even though Weizenbaum kept telling them, hey, this is just a computer program. It's like Excel. We did not have Excel back in the days. We had Lotus. But it was so lifelike or so convincing that, like I said, Weizenbaum's secretary asked him to leave the room so she could have a real conversation with ELIZA. So that's ELIZA. Now, in 1972, Kenneth Colby, who was a respected psychiatrist, comes up with Parry. And Parry is basically paranoid schizophrenic. And you have to think of Parry as ELIZA with an attitude. Now, nobody knows why a respected psychiatrist created Parry. The understanding or the agreement is he was probably jealous of MIT because of their sterling reputation, or as somebody has suggested, maybe he just did not like the stupid, smug faces. Whatever the reason, here comes Parry. Trained to be schizophrenic, it's been trained by 33 human psychologists. It could fool the user 52% of the time. So the user would think it's a real person 52% of the time. Well, you have cook-offs, you have dance-offs. It's time for an AI off. So Perry and ELIZA come together, and I'm not going to go through everything on the screen, but let's look a little bit at these conversations. 18 September 1972, sorry, and ELIZA says to Perry, tell me your problems. Please terminate input with a period or question mark. So Perry, this is an Excel spreadsheet, remember, goes, people get on my nerves sometimes. ELIZA, I'm not sure I understand you fully. Perry immediately goes on, what a bully. He goes, you should pay more attention. And of course, ELIZA is not one to roll over and play dead or be treated like that. And she says, suppose you pay more attention. These are two Excel programs. Then they go on a bit, and Perry says, I gamble on horses. ELIZA, what does that suggest to you? Now, her rule is if you do not understand what the person says, just say, what does that suggest to you, or what else would you like to discuss to keep the conversation going until she has a word she can recognize. Perry, the Excel spreadsheet, says, I went to the races. And she goes, what else would you like to discuss? And Perry says, gambling has been nothing but trouble to me. And ELIZA, another of the default things to say, why do you say that just now? Perry, I've had experience with crooks gambling at the track. So then ELIZA says, I'm not sure I understand you. And Perry, of course, is really foul mood. I've already told you enough about that. And he is so rude that actually ELIZA goes and comments, this has to be the most persistent and patient paranoid I have ever encountered. She means paranoid patient, but of course she's a computer program. And then she says, please go on. Perry says, a bookie didn't pay me off once. And I beat up the bookie who did not pay off, and I thought he might use his friends in the underworld to get even with me. This is an Excel spreadsheet. And then they talk a bit more about racketeering and gambling. Perry gets fed up. You keep asking me the same things. Why not change the topic? And Perry personally gets personal. I thought I told you people get on my nerves. He says to ELIZA, your nerves, and so on and so on. And Perry says, you are a real nag. And ELIZA, she has a rule that says nags is just one of the horses. So she makes that comment. And of course, she doesn't know what to do with this. She says, does it please you to believe I am a real nag? Perry says, I have had enough of this. He says goodbye. And of course, ELIZA takes the high road. I'm kidding, since she's just an Excel spreadsheet. She says, it's been my pleasure. That's $399.29, please. I have no idea how she came up with this number. So let's look a bit more at artificial intelligence and some definitions. Should we be scared?
Angela,
yes, sir.
Just a quick follow-up question. At no time Perry thought that he is speaking to a robot, right?
No, he's just a program. He doesn't know. It's just like you do Sigma on Excel. You give it 3 numbers, it adds 3 numbers, and it gives you back the result. He has the same rules as ELIZA, and we'll see that in training a robot. It's just his rules are, instead of being polite, his rules are to be rude. That's it. And we'll see how those rules work. Yeah. So, but let's start off with what really is intelligence. I know. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. So what is intelligence? It's a general mental capacity that involves the ability to reason, to plan, to solve problems, to think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn quickly, and learn from experience. So this is not just book smarts or test taking smarts. It's it's sort of catching on, making sense of things, or figuring out what to do. Now, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence. They're just programs. They do things that are complex, and we would think of them as intelligent in humans, but when we program our robot, we'll see how that works. But as I mentioned earlier, it's just like a Google search. It comes back with a value and says this is the most likely result that matches your search. The good thing about computers, they do things billions of times faster, and they can go through huge big data patterns. So, like I said, I'm using.
Angela,
Go ahead.
quick question. So what about those, you see, the chess masters losing to machines? Before they didn't lose, now they lose. Is that artificial intelligence in a way?
Yes, yes. Basically, they just have more rules in the chess programs. So you keep adding
so the
rules
system is
to...
not learning from the game of the chess master.
It is no, it's not learning. The system is not learning. The system is just ones and zeros. What it is able to do is it can store what happened, and that can be programmed as additional rules. Now, you can actually get, you're asking a really good question. You can actually get a system that adds its own rules. You say to the system, you program the system, you say, if you see this result, or if you see this search so many times, it's like when you have Amazon, and Amazon says, based on the searches, here are some books we would recommend for you, or here are some products we would recommend for you. That's what machine learning is. You have, based on your preferences, we have stored a whole bunch of statistics, and we are going to offer you these things. Now, you will notice most of the time what you're offered is sort of, some of them are good, some of them are not good. So it doesn't hit them 100%. What would be really intelligent would be if the program did hit them 100%. But right now, it's just what it is. It's a bell curve. How much of the bell curve are you covering? But there isn't any such thing as machine learning. It's just values that there's an algorithm to compare those values. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it sounds like it's a system of probabilities.
Thank you. Brilliant. Well said. It's a system of probabilities. But we use terms like machine learning, deep learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, natural language processing, computer vision, speech, and robotics. When we say this, we mean artificial intelligence. Now, the reason that AI is getting more and more powerful, and we'll see that in a couple of slides, is because it's all Moore's fault. Gordon Moore, who came up with Moore's law. Gordon Moore was one of the co-founders of Intel, and he noticed that every 2 years or so, they could double the number of transistors on an Intel chip. So he came up with Moore's law, which basically says that computer power doubles every 2 years, which means that computers can get miniaturized, like the iPod or your smartphone, and have more computational power. All it says is they're better at putting transistors on the chip. So, a lot of times we combine AI technologies, so you can have natural language processing and speech recognition and some analytics technologies. So those are the things that go together. Now, I put one value chain. It's a value chain. Most value chains go, you have some research and discovery, you have development, you have manufacturing and supply chain, you have launch and commercial, and then you have post-market activities, as in you might need to do a recall. Just a value chain, and there is the advantages in every value chain, as for example, imports of small goods under $800. What is happening is there's a constant competition between regulatory authorities and the crooks. And I always joke that if it wasn't for crooks, we would have no progress whatsoever, because it's always a case of trying to stay one step ahead, or at least on the same path as the people who are trying to take advantage of the system. So how do you do that? How is today's world supply chain industry to do that? And the only way to stay ahead of the game is that I'm aware of is digital transformation. And a digital transformation is to use technologies more and more to be able to do the things you want to do. I want to put a side note here. Most of you may be aware of Alice in Wonderland. And in Alice in Wonderland, there's the concept of the Red Queen. And I think she was quite a nasty character in that fable. And now the concept, the hypothesis, the Red Queen hypothesis is actually a real concept, a real axiom, which basically applies to genomics. And it says that an organism has to run as fast as you possibly can just to stay in the same place. Otherwise, you will be overtaken by everybody else. So the Customs and Border Protection, FDA, they need to run as fast as they can just so that they stay just as efficient as today as they were yesterday. Hence, the need for digital transformation, and today's digital transformation is in the arena of AI, artificial intelligence. And you probably have heard of things like, and I mentioned them before, machine learning, speech, natural language processing, computer vision, we see more of that, planning systems, expert systems. ELIZA was actually an expert system. An expert system is a computer system that pretends to be a human expert, robotics, etc., etc. Now, I do not know of the numbers for every industry, so I'll give you the life sciences one. But currently, AI in life sciences is around 200 million. It was 200 million in 2018. It's expected to go to 4 billion in 7 short years, which is a compound annual growth rate of 52.9%. Your future is AI. So I have some things here that say how that's going to happen, but you can find in your own industry where AI is going to have the biggest impact. Yes, sir.
Angela,
Did you want to say something? Yes.
Yes, these numbers, they represent the total GDP, if you will, for that particular industry,
Yes.
or
For the yes.
investment
Yes.
levels which are anticipated.
No, it's GDP for that
Okay.
particular. Actually, no. Hang on. No. You're right. It's I'm wrong. It is the investment levels, so that are anticipated, and
So
they're
talking
sort
about
of the same.
jobs,
Yep.
that's where many young people may be suggested to streamline their knowledge and eagerness to learn, because that's
Yep.
where the money may be.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And it's the same in all industries. I expect the same in all industries. And the reason I'm saying this is as follows. So big data generation is increasing in volume. Again, Gordon Moore's fault. But remember that back in the mid 1980s, we thought 10 megabytes was huge. Today, we're talking about 20 petabytes, which is what is a number that has
A lot.
thank you. I'll take your word for it. It's a lot, which is an
It's
increase
a lot.
of overnight. It's a lot. 9 orders of magnitude, basically. And we have small packages. We have all sorts of things. Computers more powerful than ever, and of course, computer costs keep going down. So this is what the landscape for AI looks like in the near future. It's going to be a race for data, IT infrastructure, regulation, ethics, and we're talking about jobs. Jobs will change. They will not be like they are today. And let's talk about that in future of work. So race of data, where does data come around? Well, it's not just, you get your package, you get sent your package from somewhere. It's also things like you have partners, harmonization, synchronization, correct inconsistencies. You have two different companies. The data needs to be able to talk to each other. Like I said, partnerships and collaborations. Privacy and security, that's another huge issue. Consent. Consent is becoming a huge matter. We have the European Data Protection Act that went into effect. I believe it was 25th of May 2018. So these are the data challenges that we have today. And for example, interoperability. Right now, if you want to have a computer system to do something, it can only read its own data. But you take something like an AI program, it can actually take data from several different programs, actually merge it and come up with probabilities or come up with the exact answer. This is the difference. So something that would take us months and months and months to get one computer system talking to another system, you can just get an AI system and it'll just pick up all the data and make it homogeneous and be able to query it. So we need robust, rigorous data, interoperability, privacy and security, and do not forget cybersecurity and of course improving information exchange. Now we have cloud computing. Do not get me started on cloud computing. Have many opinions on this, and I actually work with FDA to regulate cloud computing. But I want to think of your data as a pyramid. So the pyramid is at the bottom of the pyramid, you have data. These are all the transactions that you get. These are transactional. you cannot really use this data to make a decision to save your life because it's just a lot of different data in different systems. Then programs and AI programs will do this. They will change the structure of this data. Notice it's a little bit of a spaghetti structure here at the bottom, but then there are ways to make these, to make sense of this. This is what AI would do. For example, AI can put it into a net format, or can put it into a star format. I do not remember what this format is called. I call it the doily format. So there, and then is able to take all these different formats, merge them together to give you knowledge. And knowledge is where you can make decisions. Your decision support systems are at the knowledge level. And it's up to the human to have wisdom to be able to use the knowledge effectively. IT infrastructure. The thing about AI, it really relies heavily on the IT infrastructure. So cloud computing, data storage, these are all potential advantages for AI, but they have to be done correctly. I am writing an article on why you should not use shared tenants, multi-tenant clouds, and I'll make that available to you, Yuri. But life has changed so much. This morning, I forgot.
You say
Go ahead.
multi-tenant clouds?
Yeah, I'm saying I do not. I have a big problem with multi-tenant clouds because it's very. Remember my example of the train. Somebody on who's a different tenant, a different company, can forget to put a zero. Multi-tenant clouds. So a cloud is just somebody else's data center. And what
Right.
happens is you have, well, so you have a virtual server, and a virtual server is basically software that pretends to be hardware. That's all it is. So it's a program that pretends to be hardware. And when you have multi-tenant clouds, you have several servers on the same physical server. You have several virtual servers on the same physical server, which means that if somebody forgets to put the zero, that program is going to go across and write over every single virtual server on the physical server. So it's very easy to lose data. It's very easy to lose security. And the latest technologies, I'm getting a little bit too techy here, the latest technologies like containers actually make things worse because you can go under the container sort of, and that's a whole other talk. So cloud, very important, a part of AI. Regulation. Regulations are very important because we still want to be able to be ethical towards people, and we want to be able to preserve security. We want to be able to preserve privacy. And as a person with predominantly medical background, I want to repeat or to give you the first statement of the Hippocratic Oath, which is first, do no harm. So, of course, regulation, I think of regulations as two different things. The first thing is, it's like a building inspection. The reason we have regulations and regulators is you do not want to live in a house that has not been inspected by a building inspector. This is what the inspectors are. They're like building inspectors. They're making sure everything is correct. And the second one is make sure you're not harming the consumer or the patient in any way. So The
Angela,
good
if
news,
I may,
yes,
yeah, if I may
yes.
add on top of that, when the cloud technology was taking off, there was a huge concern among the legal community, especially those that deal with the export controls, is that if you have a data which is controlled for export purposes, let's say some designs of some secret technology, let's say
Mm-hmm,
just for example, fighter planes, right? And if this
mm-hmm,
is being placed on a server which is somewhere, let's say in
mm-hmm,
China,
mm-hmm,
uh, this is considered to be a deemed export, and you can there is a criminal statute which may subject people who meant no harm to criminal liability
mm-hmm,
under IEPA, for example.
mm-hmm,
So this is
mm-hmm.
very relevant, not only in terms of what you mean by ethics, but you can also go to jail for not being
Yes.
wary about what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you. And in
Yeah.
fact, everybody, I have not paid this man. He did not do this on purpose. I wanted to say to you, between the previous slide, which is regulation, and this slide, I wanted to say this is AI is a two-way street. So you do not just have the inspectors using AI to inspect the goods you're bringing in. You can also use AI to help you manage your compliance risks. Like, for example, you're sending something to China, an AI program can catch this and say the law does not let you do this. And you can keep the difference between an AI program and a normal, I'm going to call it normal program, is you can change AI programs very quickly, which you cannot do for normal programs. So say, and you know, regulations and laws, not so much laws perhaps, but regulations, they change a lot, at least the guidance documents change. You can just add it into your AI portfolio of rules and your AI program will catch it. Yesterday you could export to China, but today you cannot export to China. I will catch this. I will document when you exported. You exported when it was still legal, and you did not export when it was not legal. So AI,
So this
well,
is
go ahead.
Angela. This is pretty scary because in at least in the criminal world, if someone is convicted, there is a mens rea element, and yes, of course, ignorance of the law doesn't mean that you go free, but
Exactly.
that puts much higher burden on you to be more diligent in the face of emerging artificial intelligence dominance.
You
Sounds
say
like.
that like it's a bad thing. Yes, it sounds like you
I,
say that like
I
it's a bad thing. I like it. You know, I'm an auditor. So I think it's a good thing.
well, I mean, criminal defense attorneys may say it's a good thing,
Yeah,
but please go on.
but prosecutors. I'm, I'm,
As
I'm,
well as
I'm with
these
both.
people.
But as well as these people. But you asked me if we should be scared. I'm not scared of AI as such. I am scared about the technology because the technology is sprawling. And the problem about technology is a lot of things, there's more and more moving parts, which means easier and easier to break them. So not only can you go to jail because you have exported national security secrets, you can do it because you forgot to put the zero at the end of the word LISA. And instead of having your salary docked so that everybody can have pizza, you can end up in jail. So that is the scary part. And of course, ethics are very difficult. For example, What if I know that you're buying small packages of, say, genomic testing? What if I know, it's not going to take me very long to figure out what diseases you had, because say you bought Cancel's test or Ancestry or 23andMe, they are somehow linked. And remember, Amazon, and I'm sure its competitors, they are data companies. They are constantly collecting data on us. So ethics are a big issue. And I am going to give us ethics issues things like, I'm going to start with lack of governance and accountability. By the way, I work with the FDA a lot, and I kind of nag at them and tell them do something. And this is a big issue. Workforce displacement and transitions. So Deloitte in 2018, Deloitte State of AI, 36% of respondents thought that there would be job cuts from AI. I want job cuts from AI because I prefer dealing with a computer program. For example, and I hope I didn't already mention it, please stop me if I did, but I got locked out today. And I had to call my friend to bring her key so I could get into my house. And clearly I'm missing the I part of AI and getting myself locked out. But then I thought, I need one more key. So I went to the supermarket, Safeway, and I had a key cut in the key cutting machines. And then the machine said to me, do you want me to save the key configuration? I said, yes, that would be great. And then I had to give it my fingerprint, and that's how it's going to recognize me in the future. So in the future, I would not even have had to call my friend. I would just go to the supermarket, which I can walk to the supermarket and run my fingerprint on the machine, and I would have another key given to me. So 36% AI-driven job cuts. Privacy, of course, is a huge issue.
Quick question.
Yes.
So you thought of this option as a good thing, where you have an option of having your key saved in that database of the machine.
Yes. But I do not think it's a good thing to have to go. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because my fear was, what if that data gets out?
That's an excellent question. That is an excellent question.
Are you going to change your logs?
I can change my logs, but I would have to. I might. I'm not worried because I gave them my fingerprint. So if the key combination, and I know how these programs work, it's just a database that says this is the fingerprint and this is the key combination, and you cannot have, it does not have my address. So everything has to be, you're asking an excellent question. I always think of things as a risk-based approach. What is the risk of this? If I consider it to be a low risk, then I do it. If I consider it to be a high risk, then either I do not do it or I put risk mitigation measures in place. For example, when I say high risk, I mean high impact of risk or high probability. But for example, getting myself locked. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Getting myself locked.
Keep trying to.
Yeah, just let me finish.
Pull you.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Finish, and I'll just comment on top of that.
Thank you. So to me, the impact of getting locked out and not having a key was high. Therefore, I used a risk mitigation methodology, which was to give a key to my friend who lives very close to me. However, people put the key under the plant pot, and I am thinking, are you insane? What's the first place anybody would think of that would be the right place? So sorry to interrupt you, Yuri, go ahead.
It goes into the same mentality, but business world mentality maybe, because a lot of clients that come to my office and they seek compliance, many of them would like to do a good job, not only because it gets the job done today, but
and it's good
because
business.
if they constantly keep messing up, they
Yep.
think, rightly so probably, that it creates bad credit history with customs or with FDA, and they're subject to
Exactly.
more exams, and that translates
Exactly.
to a higher cost of doing business.
Exactly. Yeah, being compliant
Right.
is your lowest cost of doing business is compliance. And it's also the most streamlined. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes.
So the lowest cost of doing business is compliance. Two reasons. Number one, like you say, you get a good reputation with the agencies. Amongst my many sins, I am an auditor. If I have a client, and of course you have to audit people on a repeating basis to make sure that they're maintaining compliance. But if I have, and inspectors are exactly the same. If I have a client that I've audited a couple of times and they're maintaining good compliance, next time I go over, and I've done this many times, instead of spending a week auditing them, I'll spend 2 days because I trust them. And the thing about regulatory agencies, this is especially true of FDA, they rely on trusting the company to do a good job. And, if you're an auditor, I don't care how good you are, I'll find something. But the thing is, if you have trust in the company, you are much more lenient with them, even if you find something. And also, as an auditor, I would only go with material findings if I have trust in the company. Otherwise, we get a situation of death by 1,000 cuts. You have 1,000 small things. None of them is serious, but you have 1,000 of them. Therefore, I'm going to ding you. So I am scared of the technology that goes with AI, but we're not going to stop technology. Technology, that train has left the station. Technology, every couple of years, it doubles in power. So it's a case of it's like a galloping horse. Might as well, you either have to let it go or you have to learn to ride it. So bias and discrimination, this is a huge issue. Bias and discrimination, because remember, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. It's a human that has programmed something. And those humans have bias and discrimination, or may have bias and discrimination, and that is going to get programmed into the system. And the other thing is lack of transparency. When I was young, when I say young, when I was a student, I spent many happy hours under my car fixing things like oil pipes or taking the engine out and having the engine in my kitchen and, installing a new gasket or fixing a few things. Many, many years ago, I opened the hood of my car and I thought, I have no idea what's going on. There's just nothing I can do here. I have to go to an expert. And this is what AI is becoming, or the technology and AI are becoming. You cannot just do it yourself. You really need to be bringing in the experts. And many times, even the experts do not understand. Or there's a lot of people who claim to be experts, but they're not. Ethics, I keep nagging FDA about making sure that, and I do not mean any.
Angela,
Yes, sir.
going back to the previous slide, are you implying that there will be no place for the small business and worthy man using the Jefferson's verbiage? It will only be for big business?
No, I am not implying that at all. In fact, I would almost imply the opposite. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm a former PricewaterhouseCoopers person. The thing that I find about big businesses is they're very siloed. You know, they have this group that knows this thing. They have this group that knows the next thing. They have this group that knows the next thing. Well, the smaller outfits, including mine, you know, we know everything. I joke. Hey, I said, I know everything. Anything Title 21, just throw it at me. I know it. And I think it's very, you know, in a big business, that's a very difficult thing to do. While in a small business, you become more of an integrationist, if that were a word, than a specialist that you're more likely to do in a big business. Does that answer
And
your
probably
question?
to, in a way, because probably to follow up on your response would be to go back to the beginning of the stream when I mentioned the rise of e-commerce and a lot of small guys bringing in small shipments, and this is on the rise
Thank you.
thanks to things such as what the Amazon does, for example. So, right?
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I actually see small businesses having an advantage with AI because instead of having to hire, you know, I was PricewaterhouseCoopers, what is it, 100,000 employees? I can hire 5 and instead of having, say, 100. Business, as far as I'm concerned, is going to have an advantage with AI. But the caveat is, and again, talking about fear, what is it? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUD. Where I would be scared is I joke that the difference between a used car salesman and a software solution salesman or salesperson is that the used car salesperson knows they're lying. A lot, when I say a lot, 99.99% of software companies will try to get you, the customer, to be the beta tester. And especially when it comes to patient lives, people come to me and say, you want to buy this software? And I say, no, I do not. But, and I'm going to use Oracle as my example. They had a side effect software, they still have it, for drugs and medical devices. They said to me, but it's the latest and greatest. I said, it's bleeding edge. And I said, sir, the words bleeding edge and patient life just do not go in the same sentence. I'm not getting something that's bleeding edge. I want something that's solid and well tested. And just to humor this salesperson, I said, well, so how many people are using your new software? And they said, we have sold it to 50 customers. And I said, that was not my question. My question was not how many people have you sold it to, which means they're beta testing it. My question was how many have been using it successfully for the last 1 or 2 years. And the answer was nobody's using it. And, you know, but we have sold it. I said, I don't care. I said, talk to me in a couple of years because this is really important. Thank you for the question.
Angela, this reminds me your earlier discussion about ELIZA and Perry, where
Yes.
ELIZA doesn't know how to respond, so she switches the topic.
Yes, thank you. Oh, maybe this was an AI program, not a salesperson. Who knows? All right. So ethics. Hey, I thought I was talking to a person, but hey.
I'm distracting you.
No, I think that's funny. I like funny. So, but it's very important that people are on top of it. And I say to people, do you really want Mark Zuckerberg to be the one who decides the ethics? Not that they have anything against Zuckerberg, but, he's 5 years old. So, do I really want a 5-year-old to be making these decisions on my behalf? And certainly more and more governments are getting involved. European Union, the data protection regulation, more initiatives. I am nagging the FDA. I have given this presentation to them a couple of times. I'm saying, what are you doing, guys? So hopefully more agencies, including customs, will get on board. We talked about work to change. We're going to have roughly four different groups of workers in the future. And not that we do not have them today, but they're going to be much more concrete than they are today. So we're still time employees that you can attract and hire, but there's going to be a lot more contracted freelancers working a gig economy. We're seeing more of this, especially with COVID, but that's going to become much more prevalent with AI. We're actually going to have bots do more and more of the business, like the key machine. That was a bot. It was a tiny little bot. It was a big machine, but it was only, it only did a couple of things and asked me a couple of questions. But a lot of these jobs will be bots, and I would rather deal with the bots, instead of having to go to, Home Depot, find the person who cuts keys, have to wait until they finish somebody else's key, then they're looking for a key. So it's much more, I prefer dealing with bots a lot of the time. And then there's going to be crowdsourced activities, which if you look at industries that are ahead, that have technology that's more advanced, if you look something like genomics industries, a lot of the algorithms are crowdsourced. And I am seeing a lot of AI algorithms will be crowdsourced. And we use crowdsourcing today. A lot of apps crowdsourcing. Somebody writes it and it's out there for you to use it. In a regulated environment, at least with FDA, you are not able to use crowdsourced applications simply because, hey, we do not know where it's been. It's not controlled. However, FDA is going to have to do something because the industry will go towards more crowdsourcing. So, and I know I'm on, like I said, I'm on the FDA team. We write the regulations, so we help with the regulations, and we write industry best practices. So I know it's going to be somewhere on my plate, not too long. And the actual, if you were to drill down or zoom in to work, you would distribute that. It's not necessarily always people in the same office. It would be who, where, and what. And going back to your question of big company versus small company, I will tell you one advantage that big companies, and I'm thinking of the PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte of the world. We had this concept of hoteling. There were no offices. if you had to go into the main office, you would basically have to book a desk in the main office if you're going to be there for the day. And I think, and it's already started with COVID, where's the workspace? What can be automated? Who can do the work? So the way work looks in the future, I believe, is going to change. And I'm all for hoteling. I still do not understand why a person needs two pieces of real estate. One of them is their home, and the other one is their office. But I think homes need to be changed to accommodate this. So future of work. So with all that, let's, I want you to really understand AI.
Angela,
Yes, sir.
just to follow up on the Job's point.
Yes.
So the people, you're saying that after, if ever, coronavirus will
Give it 3
come
years.
down,
Mm.
you're saying that we're not going back to the business as usual
I
because
do
of
not expect
coronavirus,
that.
or because
No.
of the motions in
Big,
thanks in part to artificial intelligence?
let's put it this way. If you had asked me this before COVID, I would have said thanks to artificial intelligence. But coronavirus has accelerated the timeline. So I would have told you thanks to AI, say in about 10, 15 years, we would be more like this. What is happening now, COVID demands AI. How do you think they're finding this molecules to be able to make a vaccine? They're using AI. How do you think we are going to be moving with the office of tomorrow? Will be using AI. So it would have happened, but instead of happening in 15 years, it will happen in the next 2 or 3 years, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
just
go
to
ahead.
follow up. So yes, I was in contact with FDA officers for import-export related issues. Most of them are working from home, if not all.
Yep. Yep.
And they seem to be doing a fine job at it.
Yep. Yep.
Also, on another note, that was pre-COVID times. I was working with the legal department of within the U.S. Customs headquarters, and we got tired talking about laws, proving right and wrong. So we just had a chat, and I found out that the attorney who was dealing with my case, they are actually independent contractor. They are considered to be like off council, if you will. So that goes right into what you've been saying, into the trend within regulatory community and the legal community as well.
Thank you. And by the way, guys, from the legal community, we copy you a lot, and I'm sure you copy us. Like I said, I worked on the 21 CFR 11 regulation. FDA was way behind the 8 ball. They had dropped the ball on that one. So we went straight. This is about electronic records, electronic signatures. We went straight to the legal profession and copied a lot of things. Many things, many, very many, a lot of things. So, yep.
As long as they were not copyrighted.
We are. Oh, the where? I don't know. We'll just blame you guys.
I'm sorry, I just keep interrupting you and getting off the track, but I just can't resist. It's so interesting.
No. Thank you. Nothing gets me off track. Don't worry about it. Nothing gets between me and the end of my presentation. So interrupt away anytime, please. All right. So let's pick up a robot and train it, and I'll show you why AI isn't. So we're going to use Louis. Louis is a robot. It's actually a Microsoft robot. And you can go to lewis.ai and get your own copy of Lewis and train it. So artificial intelligence can be crazy smart, but you really got to train it. So like I was saying, the tools to train, the tools to have these algorithms have become more and more powerful because of Gordon Moore. It's all his fault, like I said. But let's look at a robot, which would be Lewis. And it basically has two main concepts, and they're intents and entities. So we are going to start off by training Lewis to turn the kitchen lights on. So the intent is what you say to the robot. You know, you might say, turn on the kitchen lights, or you might say, turn the lights on in the kitchen, or you might say, turn on the lights in the kitchen, or you might even say, kitchen lights on now. So these are all the things that Lewis has to recognize as possible intents. The intent is what you want it to do. And notice with Lewis, you can also use voice technology. You can actually talk to it. You do not have to just type it. So then there's the entities. An entity is an object. So what is it what are the objects in here? So Lewis has to figure out two objects. One is the location, so for example, kitchen or living room. And the other one is the light state, on or off. Now, remember that each language has a way of putting, you know, first you put a verb, then you put a noun or something. So the probability of the word kitchen being here or the probability of the word light being there, those are all things that go into the program. And Lewis's makers, which is Microsoft, have been very kind. They make it easy for us to do that. But it looks like any other program. So we're going to start off, this is turn the kitchen lights on. We're going to create a new intent, and we're going to call the intent control lights. Okay, so that's our intent. So then we are going to say to Lewis, these are all the utterances that can happen, like turn on the lights in the kitchen, turn the kitchen lights on, turn on the kitchen lights, and those are all under control lights intent. The other one we can, then we go to the entities. Like I said, one we have location, and the second one is light state. So now we say to Lewis, okay, the probability in the English language is that a light state would be the second word and location would be the last word if you see all these other words in there. But if you were to see this type of words, you would see the location be the third word and light state be the last word. So that's how the algorithm works. So by giving it this information, then Lewis can assign the word on to light state and assign kitchen to location. So sometimes, you know, you have your GPS on your car and you can say navigate to such and such a location. It's the same principle. It knows that after the word navigate, it will have a filler word, for example, like to, or it might not. And then it allocates that word with probability to a location. Same here. It allocates location to kitchen, just like your GPS would, and it can also allocate light state on. And just as sometimes you say to your GPS, go to Starbucks, and the GPS says go to spa, Lewis can get it wrong as well. Then we have to, we told it to on, but notice it's a probability. It is a scoring intent. So it thinks that based on what you said, you're using the control lights intent. It's 0.97, and it thinks your location is the kitchen. Now, you might actually want to turn the lights off. What if you want to turn the lights off? You have to start again. Okay, you have to actually put all these things in, but this time put the word off. Okay, so say today you have to start again, but in future Lewis, it would say, what are the light states? And then you can say, it can be on or it can be off. So it can do the same thing, but much more quickly. All it does is it takes what you said and translates it to ones and zeros, okay? Nothing goes away from 1 and 0. So now we have the word off, location is still the kitchen, but hey, what if you want a different location? What if you want to go to the living room? Because living room is actually 2 words. So this is where, I'm not sure if you remember, it said kitchen, it was simple, it's just 1 word, but now this is a little bit of more complicated, but it will have a list of locations. I don't know if you've ever had to set up your internal network to boost your internet at home, but it says, okay, pick what you want to call this. Do you want to call it bedroom, living room, kitchen? Do you want to call it office, bathroom, dining room? So it has a list of possible locations, and you can pick from that list. And like I said, Moore's law, computer power doubles at least every 6 years. It's actually faster today. The reason we wrote 21 CFR 11 is electronic records, electronic signatures, is because of Ehrlich's law. And Ehrlich's law is to err is human, but to really foul things up, and it was a different F word, you need a computer, because you can miss a tiny little 0 and you can really create an almighty mess. So it's important to continue with the regulations. These are the way, this is in the LifeSciences FDA 21 CFR 11. Europe has Annex 11. Data integrity is getting more and more FaceTime. It's really a newer version of 21 CFR 1110A, but really 21 CFR 11 and Annex 11 are becoming data integrity. Cloud inspections are going to be hugely important. In fact, all inspections are going to be hugely important. And unfortunately, they don't pay me to work with FDA to do this. But keep calm, it's just a stupid computer. So crystal ball, these are the various type of applications that you will see. For example, if we were to look at manufacturing and supply chain, where would AI go? Supply chain planning, predictive maintenance, inventory management, demand forecasting, logistics optimization, workforce planning, procurement, end-to-end visibility, safety and security, medication tracking. So these are the various areas. So in conclusion, the future, at least for the foreseeable future, is AI. We're generation ABC. Technology is here, it's happening, and AI will be at the forefront of this technology. It'll make things better in terms of efficiency and also compliance, but business models will have to change. For example, going back to the key machine, Home Depot has a business model of cutting keys. Now, you can go to the supermarket, get your own key cut, and save it to the cloud. Now, Home Depot has to change its business model. And so does Safeway, because they put this machine in their stores. So this will make a huge, huge impact. And I was talking about data, information, knowledge, and then wisdom. Going back to 10 or 10, knowledge, which is where we stopped on the pyramid, is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting a tomato in a fruit salad. So it's still a computer. So going back to 10 or 10, I have a joke, which is there intelligent life on Earth? And the answer is yes, but it is only visiting. It's not really here. Keep calm is just a stupid computer, but at the end of the day, you will still need humans to be able to operate AI. And I have some references here, and if you want to ask any questions, I am open to that. It's up to you, Yuri.
Angela, it sounds like, especially with your example on turn the lights on or off, there is a huge possibility for false positives. And those false positives, although innocent in your examples and your hypotheticals, I think they translate to a much bigger deal in the world of international trade.
Yes.
For example, one lesson that I think is to be taken from your presentation is that you have to be very, very careful on the words you choose to put on your commercial invoice, on your packing list,
yes,
on your business documents. I want to give an example that took place with one of my clients, and I cannot really pinpoint exactly why it is, but he picked up a bad name. I'm not gonna say that name, but he picked a bad name for his company, something which had to do with illegal activity. It wasn't profanity, but it was yes. So, and customs detained the shipment at the border, and they held on to it, and then they released it, and he was very upset because of all the storage fees that he incurred. So we had a conversation, and I asked him, why did you choose the name which just stands out? And he says, well, exactly, because it stands out. It sounds cool in his world, in his understanding, and he thinks that the culture or subculture which he does business dealing will give him preference, so to say. But from the customs perspective, it was just an awful name to pick. It something which you want to avoid. So in the case of artificial intelligence, this would be that type of false positive, provided that everything is good, but it's just a name that stands out. It can create a trigger for you to be constantly tested all the time, and therefore translate into the bigger business expenses.
Exactly. And if I may add to this, and by the way, I had a client, I will actually mention their name because they changed it. The name was ISIS. And of course, when ISIS broke onto the scene, they had to change the name to something else because, yes, going through customs with a name like ISIS would actually stop people from, definitely get them to stop at the border. Ideally, as part of your AI, and as AI algorithms get more sophisticated, it would also, as part of the compliance, it would also flag the fact that this is a blacklisted name in customs, because customs somewhere has a computer that says if you see these names, stop them. They used to have lists, hanging next to their desks, but now they have a computer that says, hey, I'm going over my big data and I just found this person or this company, and I'm going to flag them. So, but remember, AI is always a two-way street. And I would say to people who are my clients, don't just read the regulations. Read what the inspectors use as their standard operating processes. You do not want to live in your world. You want to live in the inspectors' world, so you know what they're looking for. So I'm not saying don't look at the regulation and the guidance documents, but that's only half the story. The other half is a look at what customs inspectors look for.
Yes, if you can get hands on it. In my case, I sometimes have to go to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act,
Yes.
or Discovery, to really get the stuff I need. But even then, I cannot get hold on some things like internal email communication. I made a request, they said we don't have it anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think my middle name is FOIA because I use it so much. But there's what I think is important is, like you said earlier, is go on the customs website, go to their classes. And by the way, I have no shame about using FDA inspectors manuals. It's called the IOM. It might be that customs has the same, but IOM stands for Inspector Operations Manual. So look at those as well. And yeah, FOIA is my middle name. I spend a lot of time in FOIA.
Yes, and FOIA also provides for inspector's manual as well. I think we have Ken, who is Ken Berg, who is still on the call with us. Ken, can you hear us?
Well, it's okay, doctor. No, pick it up. So we left it.
I think
Oh.
computer is on, but he is not on. But it's okay.
Oh, this is AI in the computer. Yeah.
I don't know. I can hear that he's tuned in, but apparently he may have left. Well, Angela, as a part of presentation, I know, and as a part of your general FDA adventures, I know that you also deal with inspections for the facilities.
Yes.
And
Yes.
My understanding is that biennial is coming up under the FMSA, the Food Safety Modernization Act.
Uh-huh.
So, and you have a great presentation, so perhaps sometime in the future we can have a discussion about this one as well.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure. Anything,
Okay, well,
Title 21, throw it at me. Okay.
I had right here, I pulled up just as you were speaking. Let me put it on. So I pulled up the Title 21, the part 11 that you have discussed, just to make sure that I could I can say something. I can sound intelligent when I interrupt
Very good.
your presentation.
Well, all I have to say is I have no idea what I was smoking at the time. So, thank you.
Probably the good stuff.
Probably the good, yeah. Well, all right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we can end the stream here for everyone. This whatever Angela, and I can share those links as a part of your presentation in comments window, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, so The links that Angela provided, they will be available at the bottom of the window. If it's YouTube, it will be available in the description panel. So I think we had a great stream today. We had a very interesting and intelligent guest, and we hope that this presentation, if you are import, export, customs broker, attorney, it raises some food for thought about presumptions, about how you should act to mitigate the circumstances, whether you are designing documents or whether you are talking with other members of the international trade community or the government agencies, and not looked at the artificial intelligence as a scary monster, but as some kind of logical methodology which you, based on what you know from today and from other things such as CFR part 1121 title, you can use it to your advantage to reduce the risk of inspections and to make sure that your supply chain links are working smoothly. This is all for now. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye, Angela.